Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Nirmal. I'm Hiral Dadia. We have with us Siraj Hussain, former Secretary of Agriculture, currently visiting a senior fellow at Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relations. Welcome to the show, Mr. Hussain. My first question coming to you over here is, with regards to where agriculture as a space goes, farmers in India have constantly been on a battle against, say, skewed monsoons, probably erratic rainfall, the extreme natural events that we have been facing. Sometimes there has been, uninterrupted or interrupted, I would say, supply chain and rising inflation. With all of this, the troubles have increased with COVID-19 coming in. Plus, you had the heralding locust attack also that actually played spoilsport in some way. With all of this, where would you actually place agriculture as a sector, taking into consideration the impact of COVID?
I think if the monsoon turns out to be good as uh, predicted by the IMD, then I think agriculture should see a reasonably good growth rate. Even in 2019-20, agriculture is about the only sector which has given
Hmm.
4% plus growth. So this year also would be similar or could be even better. The only worry is that demand for certain commercial crops
Hmm.
may go down. So, for example, demand for cotton may go down because the consumption of cotton is not taking place.
Hmm.
Uh, so it is going to be a mixed picture. And I do not think it would be correct to say that farmers across India have been suffering. Some parts are more affected if there is a failure of monsoon, and some parts are not so well affected, not so badly affected.
Hmm. Right. So, do you think if any of the sectors that have to actually re-emerge out of this pandemic right now, agriculture possibly would be one of the fastest one, and would be shining in terms of FY21, because manufacturing companies have given up. I mean, everyone's come out and said that, I mean, we don't see a major revival that could be taking place in FY21, but agriculture seems to be slightly insulated, as you mentioned. So do you think that could be the only sector which could be coming in as a support?
Yeah, the support from the government has come in the form of these three new ordinances, uh, which will surely have an impact, but that will be a long-term impact. So going forward in the immediate future, if you ask me, will there be an impact on Kharif? Then my answer would be that uh, it is not very likely that the recent announcements will have much impact on Kharif. In fact, it will also differ from state by state. In Maharashtra, I am told that loans of many farmers have not been written off, and therefore they may not be able to raise loans from banks for Kharif crop. So it depends, but on the whole, if the
Hmm.
monsoon turns out to be good, then we are going to have a very good Kharif crop.
Right. So with the reforms that have come in as well, majority of them, if you go to see that the government has announced in the stimulus package, Mr. Hussain, have been long-term agricultural reforms. Do you think the reforms have been enough to support the farmers right now, or is it that the compensation and relief that was required by the farmers in immediate loss, in immediate terms with regards to where the losses that they've suffered right now due to the lockdown, they have not been compensated for?
Actually, I've written about it.
Hmm.
And I had argued that some farmers in certain sectors do need cash assistance to
Hmm.
compensate for losses. For example, the poultry farmers. Now, the poultry sector has been, unfortunately, a victim of fake news from time to time. Yesterday, also, there was a fake news circulating that Punjab has banned, poultry because of COVID-19. It was a complete fake. So, but somehow and your viewers should know this, somehow the middle classes have been convinced that any form of cash assistance for the poor is a dole. So on one TV channel, uh, an anchor like you said that why should we give goose? He used the word goose
Okay.
for direct cash assistance to people affected by migration.
Hmm.
Point is that perhaps the government's advisors on economy have told them that the fiscal space is very limited, and therefore no assistance has come by way of direct transfer. But my own sense is that we may see some assistance coming in the form of direct transfers also as we move forward.
Okay. And if you have to talk about the longer term reforms in terms of where the Essential Commodities Act is concerned, or even in terms of where agricultural marketing go, yes, they are long term reforms. But you know, another rider that we are picking up in the Essential Commodities Act ordinance, it states that if the prices are increased and are above 100%, the stocking limit could be imposed. Do you think that's something which could be a deterrent with regards to private investment then?
I think the private sector would be studying the ordinance, and it is also being examined by various stakeholders. And I'm sure that the government will get the feedback, and when it is placed before Parliament for enactment as an act, there may be some changes. But we have to realize that government will retain some residual powers in case of food items. Uh, we may or may not like it, but it is very unlikely that government will give up all the control uh, under the Essential Commodities Act.
So, how do you think could this actually be done in a better way, according to you?
Actually, I have written about agriculture marketing yesterday in the Wire. Have a look at that. So, as far as that particular ordinance, written a detailed article. Um, See, what has happened is that these three ordinances have come during the period of COVID-19, and while the large part of the economy is still under shutdown or
Hmm.
towards recovery. So I do not know how closely were the state governments consulted, and whether there was consultation with other stakeholders. I'm sure they would have consulted some people, but
Hmm.
how diverse this section was, I really don't know. So when it is placed before Parliament, I think by that time a lot of debate would have taken place, and the government may also be in a better position to take into account the suggestions and the progress, if any. Of course, I do not expect much progress in a very short term. So those will be taken into account when the act is enacted.
Right. Mr. Hussain, you know, when we talk about India as a country, majority of the great reforms have always come in times of crisis. This is the crisis that, you know, all economies across have been facing. Do you think if we are only thinking from agriculture as a perspective, because again, agriculture, manufacturing, infrastructure, three pillars that really need to be supported in a way, you know, to rejuvenate from here on. Do you think it is advisable, or it would be good if a sovereign wealth fund or something is created to support these three sectors, and probably, you know, to move forward from here on, something in the form of a India Agri-Tech Authority is set up as well, that could actually initiate policies and monitor the progress from here on for agriculture as a space?
I don't think there is a need to set up any other body within the government, uh,
Hmm.
because in the government, after all, when policy is made, then it is the ministries which make policies, and the ministries can take feedback from anyone. Every think tank is willing to offer its support to the government. Everybody is coming forward. So, and the government has rightly decided, in my view, that no new scheme will be launched.
Hmm.
A new organization is not needed, but going forward, if there are good ideas coming from anywhere, I'm sure the government will consider that.
Right. So, what's the sense that you have with regards to, say, for farmers, if you're saying that pension plan for farmers that could be provided for retirement benefits, probably their healthcare insurance, which is then managed by someone like an LIC. If things like this is done for farmers, along with this, where implementation of MSP is, 100% to ensure that best prices for farmers is, actually given out. Uh, Again, there is improved access with regards to credit facilities and crop insurance. Do you think these are things which need, strict action from your on?
First of all, let me come to MSP. I do not think any government can procure all the commodities at MSP. All the 23 commodities cannot be procured at MSP. It is neither feasible nor desirable. So it is not going to happen. Now, as far as other policy interventions are concerned, the government does consider that at times the implementation is not up to the mark, but policy making itself should enable a better environment, both economic, financial, legal environment for attracting more investment, improving productivity, etc. As far as the pension scheme is concerned, the government does have a pension scheme for farmers. Of course, the numbers enrolled are very small. I think some 16, 18 lakhs. It could be due to lack of awareness, etc. As far as crop insurance is concerned, I had written earlier many times that all the tenders for crop insurance should be finalized before the first forecast of monsoon is issued. Because once you know that monsoon is going to be deficient or normal or above normal, then the companies will quote in a different manner. So crop insurance scheme has been revised a number of times, but it seems also this year the government had initially said that it will become optional. So if it really becomes optional, then I think crop insurance scheme will not survive.
Right. And overall, on the back of the global trade disturbance that we have been witnessing, we've been hearing that farmers are facing a shortage with regards to where agricultural inputs are concerned, especially in the form of fertilizers and pesticides. Do you think that could come in as a concern, or are we self sufficient on that front?
We do import, in case of DAP, potassium fertilizer, for example, most of it is imported.
Correct.
So similarly, in case of urea, some 30% urea is also imported. So we do depend on global markets, but I think because of the crude prices being very low, the fertilizer prices will also continue to be low. So that should not be a problem. And as far as fertilizer availability is concerned, even during COVID, the state governments and the fertilizer companies have done a good job, and there was no major bottleneck in transportation of fertilizer. And as a result of that, we see the offtake of fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, being much higher than last year in both April and May.
Hmm. Hmm. And what's the sense are you picking up with regards to where the impact on food demand goes? And with this, how are you expecting prices to be impacted?
See, that is a major area of concern for the farmers, because
Hmm.
people do not have the purchasing power, then farmers will realize an even lower price, which is already happening. We have seen that happen. In producing centers, the prices, especially of perishable products, fell down to very low levels. So, take the example of onion, for example. Last year it was touching very high prices. This year in Lasargaon and other major mandis in Maharashtra, the prices have been very low, under 20 rupees. Even in retail, in Delhi itself, onion was selling some 18 to 20 rupees a kilogram. So it is necessary, as it is for other industrial products, it is necessary that demand comes back. And demand will come back when the economy is restored. So government is doing a lot to restore the economy, but what is missing is an assurance to public that if they fall sick, they will get treatment, which should be available to everyone. So that is the major challenge in the next couple of months, I think.
Right. So, where do you see it settling in, number one? And number two, with that, do you think there is a possibility that the countries, especially if you talk about the Indian government itself, would probably or should probably try moving towards policies that reduce the dependence on imports, and this in turn will help us improve our capacity as well to respond to future crises.
No, are you talking of fertilizer?
No, across inputs. If you have to talk about the agriculture space.
No, but we do not import any other input except for fertilizer. Because as far as pesticides are concerned, we are self-sufficient. Of course, newer molecules are not coming to India. That is a different story. So we are not really import dependent except for fertilizer. And I think, the cost of production of several urea manufacturers in India is, much higher than the cost of imported urea. So there is always a trade-off. There is an argument that there is not much need to, uh, make these inefficient urea plants survive, and uh, perhaps there is a need to decontrol the sector where not much has happened. DBT, direct benefit transfer for fertilizer, has not really started, though the government claims that the current system of sale at point of sale machine is a DBT, but actually it is not a DBT.
Okay. So that's an important point that you've made. And with this, another question I want to take with you, Mr. Hussain, is with regards to where the MSP goes. Now, this year, the MSP was increased early. So, how do you think that is going to impact sowing?
No, actually the MSP increase is very marginal this year.
Hmm.
Very marginal, just 3-4%. So, see, the thing is that many farmers I read in newspapers are going in for cotton, but if the textile sector does not improve and if export to China does not pick up, then we do not know where the cotton prices will go. So farmers, take a lot of risk. They do not know what will happen to the economy in general in the coming months. Now, based on information available to them, they decide what to sow. So, as far as MSP is increase is concerned, there is no very strong signal to go in for a particular crop.
Hmm. But then we've seen if you talk about rice as well, the Kharif sowing of rice is down almost around 23% right now, year on year. Any reasons that you're picking up on that front?
Price of what?
Uh, 20, Kharif sowing with regards for rice.
No, no, no. That is not an indicator. Abhi to time for Kharif sowing in major rice growing states in India has not come.
Hmm.
So, these figures are quite misleading. But I'm sure that if the monsoon happens to be normal monsoon, then um, our production of rice will be, as much as last year. Last year also we had very good monsoon, as you know, but in several states the crop was damaged due to late rains. So we should have good rice crop, but that depends on monsoon.
Right. And overall, do you think there is a need to actually rethink the farm export policies as well if we have to actually revive agriculture in our country?
Export policy, actually, in 2018, the government did come out with an export policy. But again, that same consideration was there that if there is shortage in the country, then the government retained the power to ban exports. So
Hmm.
that is a dilemma which the government always faces. And there are two more things that, our rice export, our major items of agricultural export are rice and buffalo meat. As far as rice is concerned, in a 2 to 5 years perspective, 3 to 5 years perspective, we can expect rice production to go down in Punjab and Haryana due to
Hmm.
sustainability reasons. So obviously our rice exports may go down, will have to go down. As far as buffalo meat exports are concerned, I think there is confusion within the government. It is not very clear whether the government would like to encourage these exports, because from time to time there are restrictions on all kinds that are imposed in transportation of animals, meat processing and all that. So there is a very good scope for export of buffalo meat, but I think the government should take a call whether it wants to promote that.
Right. So overall, if you have to look at FY21 as a whole, What, according to you, would be the contribution in terms of GDP that we would see from agriculture? By how much are you expecting it to go down, or do you think it will remain stable?
No, no, it will go up because the other sectors, manufacturing sector and services sector will go down. So the contribution of agriculture to GDP will go up. It may go up to 16%, 17%, but obviously there are limitations. So agriculture is a ray of hope for FY21.
Right. And overall, Mr. Hussain, we just have a couple of questions coming in from people who are watching as to with regards to the government of India measures and reforms that have been announced, leasing reforms, though it's a state subject, do you think that is something which is missing from the list?
Actually, the government of India has already circulated a
Hmm.
land leasing law. But there are huge problems in case of leasing. See, even richer people who own flats in cities, they, they are not very comfortable in giving their houses on rent because our judicial system is so weak that
Hmm.
we do not know what will happen. So there is general reluctance among landholders to give their land on leasing.
Hmm.
That's the difficulty.
Right. And secondly, with regards to where the Agri investment fund goes, which is almost worth 1 lakh crores, what according to you should be the pathway with regards to utilization of funds?
See, in all likelihood, this fund will be created in NABARD,
Hmm.
and there will be some kind of interest subsidy. That is the sense I get. So it will be like any other fund. Long-term irrigation fund is already there. A fund for micro irrigation is there, and a fund for food processing is there. Then RIDF is there for rural infrastructure. So it will be one more fund. See, the thing is, there should be demand for taking loans. If there is no demand in the economy, then obviously who is going to borrow? And then banks should be willing to provide loans, etc. We have seen even in case of urban people, who can give collateral and all that, banks are not very forthcoming.
Right. So overall, if you have to look from here on, especially in terms of the wage side, do you think there is a possibility that agri wages could actually come down on the back of the reverse migration that we are seeing? And do you think that the timing of the migration was right or not right? What's your sense?
Migration I have written, so I don't want to repeat that because obviously it was botched up to a great extent. But it is true that wages in labor surplus states, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, UP, Bihar, are likely to go down.
Hmm.
People are available. So Narega will take care of that to some extent, but not entirely. I think if the economy recovers, and there are some good signs since the reopening of economy, then I think many of the migrants would also like to come back to work. Um, it all depends on what scenario develops for COVID. If there are images on television showing that people not getting any medical help, etc., then they will be reluctant to come. But if the situation comes under control, if the number of cases goes down, then they will be persuaded to come, because obviously even in their home place their earnings would be very small, so they would like to come back.
Hmm. Correct. But if even if the prices do, I mean, wages do get impacted, by how much do you think it can go down? I mean, you've seen, I mean, in terms of experience, the last couple of reforms that have come in, the last couple of crises that we would have faced as well. Usually, what is the trend that you see that in times of crisis, if something like this happens, by how much do the wages usually come down?
Wages in these states, eastern states, could come down by 10-15%.
Hmm.
However, I'm also getting news from Punjab, Haryana, etc., where labor now available is mostly local, that the landlords are fixing maximum limit on wages. They are saying that we will not pay more than this to agricultural labor. So there are signs of tension even in these states
Hmm.
because there is labor shortage. So how it will play out, I cannot say, but surely wages in eastern states will go down. wages in western states, I'm talking of agriculture, northwestern states, may go up, and there will be, some kind of tussle between the local labor and the land owning farmers.
Right. And very lastly, overall, if you have to see the rest of the year as well, a couple of things that we're looking at is as to how the agriculture sector will come up from here on. What is the kind of demand scenario that is going to pan out? Logistics and supply chain has been a major concern as well with regards to the entire lockdown. What, according to you, Mr. Hussain, is the need of the hour that needs to be looked at? So there is no major impact that's caused to the farmers, especially on the back of supply chain losses. Secondly, the interest subvention schemes that the government has also announced right now. Do you think there will be a need of further extension on that front? So, what are the 3 to 4 major things that need to be taken up from here on to see that there is uninterrupted supply, there is uninterrupted progress?
Supply chain is largely restored. It was due to the miscommunication between the center and the states that the district magistrates and superintendents of police implemented a very strong lockdown, even though Ministry of Home Affairs had clarified as early as 28th March that agriculture and food processing sector should be exempted from lockdown or movement restrictions. So, as I said, if the economic recovery is there and if COVID-19 remains in control, then I think agriculture sector is going to see very good performance.
Hmm.
The food processing sector will also do very well because I do deal with food processing sector as an advisor to FICCI. So they are already, running to a capacity of 70-80%. In fact, some of them cannot meet the demand.
Correct.
However, one last point is that for the poorer people, a lot more needs to be done so that they don't starve. So there are some very disturbing reports which are coming from rural hinterland.
Absolutely, very well said. That I mean, there needs to be support that needs to come into the lower strata of society as well. But thank you, Mr. Hussain. Thank you for joining us on the show. A great pleasure. Great insights that we've picked up as well. Let's see from where we move on from here on. It'll be an interesting journey for all of us. Stay home, stay safe right now. Maybe not stay home, but at least stay safe for all of us. Thank you.
Please send me the link